Are we really communicating effectively? I'm not talking about using the correct grammar or the language or vocabulary, but is our communication effective, especially with respect to our relationships? Have you ever questioned that? And there are so many books that talk about effective communication, but in most of us, we have this belief that they are only meant for professional communication. But actually, effective communication is important in your daily life, in your relationships, and it is really underrated, and people don't understand it. And there are certain keys to communicating better. The first being having an open ended conversation. An open ended conversation would be something like asking questions which do not end with a yes or no. Because when we ask a question which basically should be answered in a yes or no, we limit the actual answer, and the person who is answering us doesn't think much and answers with a yes or no, which is actually not really their perception or their real answer. And something as basic as listening before speaking is really important. Most of us just jump into conclusions before we listen to the whole thing that the other person is saying. So, another key is to listen before you speak or before you judge. Another one related to this is thinking before you speaking. So, a lot of us have heard this, that do you even think before you speak? Because we also know that somewhere deep, we actually just jump to decisions without thinking before we speak or before we decide on things. And before you expect the other person to understand, you have to seek towards them. You have to make them comfortable enough to put their defenses down and to talk to you with their whole heart and not with the fear of judgment from your side. And one of the major mistakes that we do is that we assume that the other person cannot be that good. And that's why we already have our preconceived notions about the person, that this person can't be this good. So please start believing that the person you're talking to or you're having a communication with at professional level or personal level can be good as well. So don't judge them before they even talk about how they are feeling or how they are as a person. And the last and the most important, check in with your own emotions. Are you in the mental state to have a conversation? If you're angry at somebody else or something else, you should not have this conversation. But most of us end up having the conversation, and we end up taking out our frustration or anger on the other person who is not responsible for that. So it's very important to check in with your own emotions if you are not overwhelmed, if you're not angry or frustrated over something else, and take a deep breath before having a conversation or take a break before having a conversation with another person. So deal with your emotions first and then have this communication. And trust me, your communication instincts and your communication values will change drastically if you start following all these things.